committee. And I apologize, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Senator Cece Marr, one of the co-chairs of the Children's Committee, and I should have started with that. And Liz, unfortunately, Liz Lenham will not be joining us. I just got a call from her, and she is in another meeting that got shifted on her, and so she can't attend today. So why don't we go around and talk about starting from the top there, Sarah, and if you could just say where you're coming from, what you're bringing to this, and if there's any specific goals that you have, that would be great.
Sure. So hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Lockery. I co-chair the SAC with Mike. I'm also the Chief Operating Officer at the Children's Center of Hamden. And so I suppose what I bring to this committee is I could keep you all informed about what we are doing at the SAC and our understanding of our responsibilities with the statute.
Okay, great. Mike, why don't you follow on that?
All right, yeah. Mike Halpin, I guess my biggest role, most important, is a dad. So
you do have that hat on, so that
yeah, I have like 12 of them, all different colors. Yeah, so I mean, I could list all the things I'm involved with. It'd take probably the bulk of the meeting. But as far as DCF, I have a very good relationship with them for years. I've been involved with, especially the fatherhood, SAC, RACs, worked on POMS, QPI, Family Fur, all kinds of things throughout the years. And of course with Sarah, the work we do at the SAC and other things that I dip my hands into the department. And I have access to a lot of families that are been in care or, you know, with lived experience. I'm also on the Parent Leaders in New England, who all 6 New England DCFs, we meet together and as parent leaders, and every once in a while we have all the commissioners come and we discuss all these things.
That's great. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Appreciate that. Let's go to Brendan.
Hi, everybody. Good to see some familiar faces. Hope everybody had a nice Thanksgiving. Brendan Burke, I'm the Assistant Child Advocate. Spent 20 years at DCF. I've been in this capacity. Part of my role is to regularly review DCF's quality assurance data, which they provide to us semi-annually. So that's a big part of our role here at the OCA, is to review the QA and QI data, ask questions, make recommendations and such, and occasionally write reports when we have something to say publicly.
Okay, sounds good. We're going to go to Jason.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Lang from the Child Health and Development Institute, or CHDI. I'm the Chief Program Officer here, and at CHDI, we focus on children's behavioral health, but we do have a lot of programs on data and QI. And I believe I'm here as the outside appointee who has some experience with data and QI. I think that is something like that. And I really want one of those dad hats too. I'm going to have to look into that.
Great. Vin.
Hi, Senator and everyone. Vinny Russo, Chief of Government Relations and Policy at DCF. I hope you all had a nice holiday. You know, I hope what I can add to the conversation is just kind of what we're doing currently, making sure everybody's aware of the information that we have and where this group has determined that additional items need to be included, making sure that on the operations side and the fiscal side, we have the resources we need in order to accomplish that. I think, you know, what we're moving towards now is a report card that we hope to have on our website very, very shortly, along with the other existing data that we already post. And really, I think it comes down to just trying to ensure that what we already have is able to be shared in a very digestible way by folks. And so happy to be here and to help move that along.
Okay, terrific. And then I apologize. All I see is Dionysus. So is it Nicole?
Yes. Can you?
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. And yes, thank you, Senator and everyone. Nicole Dionis, I'm the Director of Quality Improvement, and I work within the division of, we now have the name of Continuous Quality Improvement, previously known as Strategic Planning for DCF. So we've switched to that new name of Continuous Quality Improvement and CQI. And so I'm the director, and as Vin mentioned, Zach Thorne, I supervise Zach. We work together. He wasn't able to be here, unfortunately, so I'm coming in his stead. And I have cumulatively going on 30 years experience here at DCF, and a good amount of experience doing QI, both in Region 2 previously and currently as the QI director. And yes, definitely, kind of as Vin said, hoping to give more clarity and information about the data reports that we currently produce, and work with this group to make sure that that data is shared publicly, you know, in whatever capacity is helpful. So looking forward to working with this team. Thank you.
So thank you all so much. In terms of scope of work, is there any, I mean, this was, I have to admit, Liz's bill, so I apologize for not being as on top of it as she is. And she, as I said, she was very disappointed to not be here today. But is there anything that automatically or immediately comes to mind when you're thinking about this work, about the QI, the QA, if, you know, information that hasn't been fully clear or is lacking, anything that comes to mind that you would want to point to, we should focus on first? Anyone? Oh, yep. Sarah.
So what the SAC decided to do after looking at the statutes after the last legislative session was to take a look at an annual report that the department already does. So currently the department actually creates a 5-year plan, the Child and Family Services Plan, where it identifies various measurable objectives for itself. And so what we decided as a SAC to do was to look at the data for 6 of the areas that are identified on that services plan. And then annually, there's a report, and we would take a look at that and have that be part of our evaluation. And so while the SAC statutes require that we look at data, I think it's 4 times a year, to really be able to do this justice, we are looking at data 6 times a year, and we're looking at each measure twice. So for example, we had a meeting this morning and we looked at racial justice and workforce outcomes, but we'll be revisiting those areas again in June. In October and April, we look at safety and permanency outcomes. And in May and November, we're looking at well-being and prevention outcomes. So that's our plan for the year, is to look at the data in each of those 6 areas and to look at the data twice. And what we've also asked the department to do is to take that data and present it to us both statewide and also regionally. So we could have our regional advisory councils have a better understanding of what's going on in their own communities, so that they could do an assessment of how their communities are functioning in terms of prevention and what families and children need, so that we're all creating this child welfare system. It's not just about DCF.
Sarah, can I ask is that data being reported out by DCF during those 2 months, or you're just reviewing data that's already been released as part of the previous IFCS review?
So Brendan, so because the Child and Family Services Plan for the 5 years was just released in the summer, we are taking a look this fall in the October, November, and December meetings at very preliminary data. And what we've been told is that's going to be put onto the scorecards on the agency website starting after the first of the year. So yeah, so it's, a work in process, I think, as
Right.
it evolves, but some really good conversations are coming out of the data. We had a robust conversation the past couple of months about 0 to 5-year-olds and what's needed to really strengthen the services to protect those kiddos.
Yeah, and it makes all the sense in the world to not reinvent the wheel here, right? Because DCF has a lot of the data available to it, and it's just bring it to conversation. So just to clarify, and I'm not sure I fully understood, and maybe it's a Vinny or Nicole answer, is the data going to be refreshed on the scorecard on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis? What does that look like going forward for not only the scorecard, but also for the SACS review?
I believe for the scorecard, I believe the data is going to be refreshed quarterly. And the hope is right that it will that will provide timely data that exactly the SAC and the RAC teams can look at for each quarter. So it'll be a little bit different, right, Sarah? Because you were saying that every 2 months you'll be looking at that, but at least you'll have data within the past quarter to focus on.
Yeah, is there going to be then a historical record of data? So not just as it's updated on a quarterly basis, but also in a separate listing ongoing so that we can see trends.
Yes, I mean, I think the idea behind it all, Senator, is to make sure to analyze those trends, not just see them, but analyze them as well.
Sure.
To determine, do we need a shift in practice? Is there something that we're currently doing that's not effective? Is a provider not committing to, or is a provider falling down on some of their goals as well? I mean, I think we're looking across the whole spectrum. I mean, I think one thing we can say at the department is that we do have quite a bit of data that we collect and analyze regularly. I think, how to distill that and make it publicly available has been the real question that I think we're trying to answer here is what that would look like. I mean, I know for years that the kids committee itself did an annual report card, or the kid report card, which stopped being produced a few, before my time at DCF, let's say. I'm not sure why exactly that stopped happening, but I thought that was probably a decent repository of the data that was available at the time. And I think the idea here is to dust off some of that and to see, are there any components here that we're missing? And also, as we develop our new website with its capabilities, which I'm excited to say is going to launch August of next year, after all this time, our new case management system, which we're all psyched about. That'll have a lot more capability for not only collecting, but then also analyzing and posting data that we're looking very forward to using and fully implementing. And I can tell you that Nicole and her team is working with our IT team and DAS and BITS, and kind of as we plan that whole thing out.
So I know we've been talking about the new website and reporting for a while, and looking forward to it. Is there, when you just mentioned that there is going to be information earlier, you mentioned that there's going to be information available, I think you said in a month, in January. Did I get that wrong?
I did not say that, but I will say we do have data posted already on our website. So we do have a data portal that has a lot of data that we update regularly. I'd say quarterly, if not even more often than that, with some of our data points. I think it'd be good to have a specific time frame. I think quarterly probably makes sense rather than doing some things monthly, some things semi-annually, where if we can find a happy medium. And I'd like to talk with with Fred and our other data folks about what makes the most sense. I think we're kind of settling on a quarterly kind of reporting schedule here. But no, what we do have is that we are going to be launching that report card very, very soon to start using it internally and making sure that we're tracking that stuff regionally. And then work out any, it's brand new, so we want to make sure we work out any kinks before we kind of formalize it with the online launch. But I can't imagine that it's going to be that difficult. I mean, we're really focusing, and it's like what you said. We break it down into segments, like, what's well-being, prevention, various components of what the system does. So we can look at those things from a very, from kind of a grouping scenario to, again, look at the trends in these different types of programs that we have.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions or overview on this, Nicole?
Excuse me. Yes, thank you. May I just clarify the January 2025? I think that is referring to the DCF scorecard. That is what we hope, that some of that information will be publicly available in January, that we'll be publishing that. That's the January date. But yes, our new system, our new child welfare information system, that will be August of 2025.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification. I really
we have an understanding of so if the CFSR, and I used the wrong acronym before, I'm sorry. So if the CFSR data is going to be used quarterly, right, for review, the sample size of the entire CFSR is relatively small, like 50 cases or so, right? So if we're looking at it quarterly, are we only looking at 12 or so cases? And is that enough of a sample to make really reflective observations of the system?
Then do you mind if I speak to that?
No, please. I was waiting for you to jump in.
Let me say this, and I should have said hi, Brendan. Nice to see you. I haven't seen you. I will say, and I will tell you that I honestly just got this straight in my head within the past 2 years, I would say. We have the CFSP, which is our Child and Family Service Plan, which is required by the feds and is done every 5 years. And we have to provide reams of data for that. And as a sort of adjunct to that, or as part of that reporting on the CFSP, every year we do an APSR, which is annual planning service review. So that is it sort of aligns with the CFSP, and it's some of those same pieces of data that we're reporting on every year. That is different but again, related to the CFSR, which is the Child and Family Service Review. You know that, Brendan. That is the federal review of our and every state child agency's work that happens every 5 years. So in trying to sort of corral all of these different reports we have to do, and these data points that we have to provide to the feds, to the state, to the legislature, internally, to help, make sense of that, we're trying to collate that so that we have these consistent data points, which is what we are trying to populate that DCF scorecard with, so that the data points that we're reporting to the feds and that are needed by the state, all of that is going to be contained in that scorecard. That's our intention, with Sarah, as you referred to, with a focus on those 4 areas of safety, permanency, well-being, and prevention. I would just add, just not for confusion, but just to add, the scorecard also has data points. In addition to those primary 4, we're also looking at racial justice and workforce. So those areas we're looking at in the scorecard. So Brendan, to answer your question, and I hope this does, we're trying to use multiple sources of data to inform that scorecard, as we do from some of our QI reports that we use now, because you're exactly right. If we're only using CFSR reviews, that's just such a small number that it doesn't yield good information. So we're trying to use like our ROM reporting platform and our link reports, and yes, the CFSR reviews when we need to, and some of our qualitative case reviews to come up with those data points.
Yeah,
And
that clears it up for me. So thank you.
And it was the SAC's intent to, abide by our responsibilities with the statute to look at the data, but also then to make sure we allow enough time to actually have conversations with the department about an analysis of the data and how the data could inform the work and improve the system going forward. So that's why we are talking about the data much more frequently than what the statute is requiring us to do. So 6 of our meetings a year, we will be looking at data. And only doing 2 of the topic areas a month so that we have enough time to really dig into it and have it be useful to us.
And I just want to be clear too. I know that we're talking about a lot of federal reports like the CFSP, that's the plan, the reviews, the annual. All those are sent to the legislature when they are approved by the Fed. So basically how it works, just so everybody's on the same page, we are required to submit these reports under specific federal guidelines, and then we wait to hear back from the feds that will approve and or accept them. And it's at that point, then we send them over to, I believe, both the Children's Committee and the Appropriations Committee, but we also have them all posted on our website. So if any of this stuff you want to look through or dig through, it's all available right now as we're meeting today.
So Vin, just out of curiosity, what is the general time frame for acceptance review by the feds?
So with the CFSP, which is the Children and Family Service Plan, it's every 5 years. So we just got done with that cycle. We submitted our plan by the June 30th deadline of this past year. The feds approved it, I want to say October-ish.
That sounds right.
And then we submitted the reports to your committee, Senator, as well as appropriations, and they're on our website.
So
At the same time, we're going through our CFSR process. The Child and Family Service Review is interesting because it can happen annually. It doesn't always happen annually. In fact, we haven't had a CFSR in a couple years because we were pretty successful in meeting the requirements in our previous CFSP. And so we were able to kind of take a little break from those. The APSR, which is the annual, I think it's annual progress and service review, those are done annually, as the name specifies, and it's basically looking at the various things that's either in the CFSP or other data points that the feds are asking for. To add a little wrinkle to all of this, which always happens, is that after they get done with our CFSR or during the APSR process, and Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, we also get what's called a program improvement plan or a PIP. So, most of the time, child welfare agencies don't achieve what they're trying to do. I mean, that's just a national thing that occurs. We're guilty of it as well. We do the best we can, but obviously we're dealing with very difficult situations. Then we get issued a PIP. And so when that PIP comes through, we use that plan to try to correct any deficiencies that we're seeing. That is also submitted to the legislature when we have one and post on our website as well, and showing, and that PIP will have certain criteria and thresholds that we have to meet throughout the plan to see if we're making progress in those areas of need.
Okay, so it's about 3 months from submission to response.
For the CFSP, that's typical. Everything else, it's pretty much, along the same line. Some might be quicker than others, but they're all pretty much, as you know, the federal government, they like to take their time to review things.
Well, 3 months doesn't seem bad, given it's.
It really isn't too bad. It really
Yeah.
isn't. We were actually pretty happy. In fact, this last one, we got a lot of compliments from the feds on it because we decided to do something a little different than we had in the past. We actually reached out to an external partner to help us craft it. And in fact, I know that some of our staff has been talking about how we did our CFSP with other states right now, trying to help them as they get their CFSPs drafted and off the ground. So very happy with how it came out.
Great, thank you. Okay, so is there anything else that we need to address right now?
I think we need a work group to digest what Vinny just told us all. But I don't want to lose sight of all the data that DCF collects on a really regular monthly basis too, right? Like that's really informative, real-time, qualitative data that should be really helpful and guide a lot of the conversations in this group, and not necessarily what gets reported to the feds. And I know DCF uses that data to inform their practice. We should be using that as well. And I just want to put in there a plug of understanding or ensuring that we recognize quantitative versus qualitative, right?
Mhm.
And judging by a number of children that enter foster care on a given month doesn't really speak to practice, because some kids may need to get into foster care, right? Some kids may not, right? So looking at that trend line, what story does that actually tell us about our system versus what are the nuts and bolts behind some of the qualitative data that really informs what practice looks like now, how decisions are being made, how our workforce looks. Things like that really speak to the story that DCF is in terms of performance and child safety and all those things that were just talked about. Those are the things that tell the story, not so much an end number that we can look back in 20 years of to assess.
Right. Always. It's always about the children. So I am going to probably end this for today and have Christian reach out to all of you and get meeting dates. Christian, can you take care of that?
Yeah.
And then we'll come back together. I think that's the best plan of attack. Okay. So thank you all so much for your time. Good to see you. Good to meet you. And I look forward to our next meeting. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.